Hey friends, welcome to week 5 of Deeply Rooted. Jesus forged a new path and a new way for us to follow God and for all of the world to follow God. And he asked a bunch of fishermen to help him do that. Now, having grown up in Louisiana, I've been around my fair share of fishing boats, fishermen, and seafood markets. Truth is, being a fisherman, it's really hard work. It's really honest work. And sometimes it can be a bit messy. So I guess who better than fishermen to help spread this message of love and grace in the world? There are a few times in the gospel stories when Jesus asked people to give up everything they have to follow him. In the case of a few fishermen, they made the decision to drop their nets to go. Jesus was speaking something to them that resonated so deeply, so intuitively, that they likely didn't feel like they had a choice of what to do. But there were other times in Scripture, there were people who walked away from Jesus, who didn't believe the things he said, or maybe didn't want to heed his call for a more fulfilling and whole life that would ultimately shape the course of history. And in terms of those who surrender and those who don't, not much has changed on that front. On one end of the spectrum, there are those who have surrendered to the way of Jesus. They've laid down their nets, so to speak, and to live in a way that is loving, in a way that's merciful, in a way that's healing, and to really kind of walk in the way of Jesus. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are those who maybe have heard the message and have completely dismissed it as irrelevant or untrue, or frankly, just way too confusing and complicated for our lives right now. And I think most people really, between these two spectrums, fall somewhere in between. I think there are those folks who know Jesus is important, but can't seem to let go of the control that they think they have over their lives. The things they own, the things that they do are just way too important to drop their nets and go. But then there's also folks that I believe have a longing, a sense of deep longing where they know their life can be more full, where their hearts can be more open, more geared towards love and justice, and yet life keeps just getting in the way. Wherever you are on this spectrum, surrendering your life to Christ takes courage. And it's not a one-time activity, but it does require the act of dropping our nets. Dropping our nets sets us on a journey of faith, but it's critical to remember that it's in our day-to-day life, it's in our actions and our habits and our interactions that really point to whether or not we are following Jesus. It's not just our words. It is our actions and the state of our heart. Those fishermen dropped their nets to follow Jesus. And admittedly, was it a bit crazy? Sure. But frankly, what part of this life isn't amazing and crazy? Life is a wild, precious gift that brings us to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And what's important for us in this story we read today, and that we'll consider over this week, is that these men, given an invitation from Jesus, were given an opportunity to drop their nets and follow him. And that set them on a journey to learn, to see miracles, and to eventually share good news from place to place. These fishermen and the other disciples would make an intentional effort to be followers and messengers of Christ. And they would do it through their presence, through their walking together, and through their breaking of bread. And these same intentions that these fishermen and disciples had to follow Jesus, to go with him, to listen and to learn, are right in front of us. But it's possible that we're holding on to a whole slew of nets, like the nets of wealth, the nets of control, the nets of wanting more, the nets of self-centeredness, the nets of ego. Friends, I could go on and on about the different nets we hold on to. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to drop our nets. We are supposed to drop our nets. Oftentimes, so many of us think that if we let go of these nets and we make an intentional effort to follow Jesus in our hearts, in our minds, and in our actions, that we are somehow losing something valuable, when the truth is the only thing we often lose is the control that we think we have over our lives. And I think that's part of one of the more counterintuitive aspects of Christianity. And that is that in the dropping of the nets, in the surrender, we actually gain freedom and the opportunity to be shaped into loving, whole, and merciful human beings. So friends, in this week, I hope that you'll consider how you might drop your nets and follow Christ, because Christ is yearning for us to follow him. Take care, and I'll see you next week.